The three most important types of programming expressions we're going to talk about are for loops, while loops, and if statements. So we've already talked about for loops and if statements. So next one we want to talk about is while loops. So how do they work? Let me show you in a script. So a for loop, remember, it looks like for I equals v, something like that. So the expression is always for, then a variable name, then an equal sign, then a vector. Okay, so it could be something like for I equals 1, 3, 5. Okay, something like that would work. A while loop is a little different. So a while loop, here goes some true-false expression. So for example, it could be while x is less than 10. So let me give you an example of a while loop. Say I do while x is less than 10, x equals x plus 3. Finish the while loop. And then won't we here put a display just so we know how many times we go through the loop. So I'm going to say another loop. Okay, and at the very end, I'm going to say display output is, okay, and then I'm going to display x. So notice the difference between these two displays. This one I have in single quotation marks, so it's just a string, so it prints output is. This one I don't have in single quotation marks, so it prints whatever the value of x is. So I'm going to save it. Let me call it while script. Now let me go back to the command window. So what's going to happen, notice over here in the workspace, that's a clue. What's going to happen if I try to run this while script from the command window? I get the error undefined function or variable x. Okay, because here I say while x is less than 10, so MATLAB wants to evaluate x less than 10 and decide is that true or false. And because x is not defined, I get an error message. So because this is a script, not a function, I could define x here. I could have x equals -5. I put a semicolon there so nothing got printed to the screen. Now if I run the while script again, okay, so what happened? Started with -5. So let's see what happens if I take away this semicolon. That'll make it clearer what's happening. So let me do x equals -5 again. And let me run while script. So it says x equals -2. Why does it say that? Because the first line is add 3 to x. X started out as -5. So I get -2. Then I get another loop. Now it goes back here and it adds 3 again. That's where this 1 comes from. Another loop. Okay, and so on all the way up until it gets to 10. Then why is there this another loop? That's because here I get to 10, here I get another loop. I come to this end and go back here, but now x is not less than 10. Okay, so this part fails, this part comes out as false, so then it jumps down here, and now it displays output is 10. And in retrospect, I guess calling it output is not the right thing to call it because it's a script and scripts don't have outputs. But the main point of that was just to show you that this only shows up at the very end when I'm out of the while loop. So what would happen if I had less than or equal to 10 instead? Okay, let's try it. Let me reset x. Let me run the script. So now it's a little bit different. Now when it gets to 10, it does 10 less than or equal to 10. That's true. So it goes through this while loop one more time than it did before when I had strictly less than 10. But otherwise it's the exact same. So when it goes through it again, adds 3 to get up to 13, prints another loop, then has output is, then has 13. So let me do one more example of a while loop. So this one, how about I have it as a function? Okay, functions are really what we care most about in this class. Okay, let me call it while function. Input is going to be n. Output is going to be a vector v. Okay, I'm going to start out. V is just the empty vector, so right now v has length 0. And now I'm going to say while length of v is less than n. Then I'm going to put n at the end of v. So how do I put a number at the end of a vector? Okay, so this part says start out with the same vector. This part says put the number at the end. And I have to finish the while loop with the word end. Okay, I save it as while function. Now I'm going to evaluate while function. Let me call it while function of 3. Okay, let me call it while function of 6. So you can see that while the length of the vector is less than 6, keep putting 6 onto the end of the vector. So total, it gets length 1, length 2, length 3, length 4, and let's think about what happens when it has length 5. Okay, so it's just made a new n at the end of v, so now v has length 5. It asks, what's the length? Okay, the length is less than 6, so now it puts another 6 at the end of v. Now it asks, is the length less than 6? No, it's not. The length is equal to 6. So it finishes the while loop, and then here it comes to the end of the function, so it returns this vector v.